Hello everyone, welcome to today's Saturday class. I hope you're having a good morning. I'm sure many of you have big plans for this weekend and into the next week as it's Chuseok. So happy Chuseok to everyone. I hope that you have some happy plans in the next few days. That you get to spend time with your family, eat lots of delicious food, too much delicious food. I know that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to eat too much and regret it later, but enjoy it while I'm doing it. Today we are looking at business emails. We're going to look at some rules of how to write business emails, some common phrases, which I think are always helpful because we can just remember those and we use them quite often. I use the same phrases in business emails very often. So I'm going to show you some of those. So let's jump right into it. Okay, first I want to look at this quote by Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban is a billionaire. He is owner of a sports team, I believe, as well. And he says something that I completely agree with. He says, whatever you can say in a meeting, you can put in an email. If I have questions, I'll tell you via email. Which basically just means I don't want to talk on the phone. Don't call me. We don't need to have a meeting. We can easily just send emails. Emails are so much easier than talking on the phone. I think that in maybe older generations that they prefer talking on the phone. It's what they're used to. It's what they've done most of their life, talking on the phone. But for younger generations, and I don't consider myself very young, but I am part of this generation. I guess I'm a millennial, but I feel more like Generation X. But we prefer using texting and emails and not face to face. It's just more comfortable. How do you feel? Would you rather talk on the phone to somebody, or would you rather send a text or an email? What is more comfortable to you? Tell me in the chat room very quickly. Do you prefer using email or text, or do you prefer actually just calling and talking on the phone? It can be faster. Talking on the phone can be faster, and it is necessary in business sometimes. Sometimes in business, you have to talk on the phone, and I understand that. But if there's a choice, texting, for me, is so much more comfortable. What about you? What do you think? Okay, Jenny says, I prefer email too. I think it's easier to get your thoughts together. You can write exactly what you want to say. But when you're thinking, you have to think too quickly, and you might forget something. Let's see. Moonsun says text is fine. Chung Daun says I prefer texting. In says I prefer everything except phone calls. I understand that. Kyung-hee says I prefer using a phone. Good. See, some people do prefer using a phone, and there's nothing wrong with that. Oh, but texting is the best for me. Okay, texting is best. Yeah, texting is easy. Okay, let's look at a few of these questions. How often do you write emails in English? Do you ever write emails in English? Have you ever had to do that? Right now you're writing in the chat room in English, which is awesome. Thank you. But do you ever write emails in English? Have you ever had to do that? Or do you write English at other times, like text messages or Kakao Talk? When are times that you have to write English in your day-to-day life? Maybe some of you are CUF students. I'm sure that most of you are CUF students, maybe even in my class. And in our classes, we have different discussion rooms. We have like the Chayu Gesipan and the Q&A. We have the different chat rooms. Do you write in Korean or do you write in English? I highly encourage you to write in English. It's good practice to write in English, and it's a very safe environment to do so. So where do you use English in your day-to-day life? Maybe Kakao Talk ever? Maybe emails? Maybe in the 자유 게시판, maybe in the chat or in the discussion boards in your classes. Also, what is the hardest part about writing English? What's most difficult for you? Is grammar difficult? Spelling? Vocabulary? What's the most difficult? I know that grammar is difficult for people, but spelling is also difficult. Spelling is just... English comes from so many different languages. We have absorbed other languages, so our spelling system is not normal. We have so many different spelling systems. For example, I'll give you an example of how crazy our spelling is. I'll write a few words here. Through, oh my goodness, I cannot write. Through and though and trough and let's see, rough. These words all have the same last 5 letters, O-U, or 4 letters, O-U-G-H. They all have the last 4 letters, O-U-G-H. They're all pronounced differently. Through, though, trough, and rough. They're all pronounced differently. Spelling is just so crazy in English. It's just crazy. Let me look at a few of your messages. Tong Dawan says, I have to text or send emails to my kids' teachers. In English or Korean? In English, that's interesting. Cool. I don't usually write emails in English, says Jenny, but sometimes I do. I sometimes do texting in English. Excellent. That's good practice. And Kyung-yi says, for question 3, grammar and vocabulary are the most difficult. Yeah, grammar's definitely difficult. Yeah. Again, just like spelling, English has so many different grammar rules, and there's so many exceptions, like yewe, so many exceptions to all of those rules, that it makes it very difficult. Unju Shin says, grammar is the most difficult. Everyone hates grammar, yes. In says, English email is essential in my business field, but not Kakao Talk nor text. Cool, but English emails, wow, that's good practice. Emails are more difficult, I think, because emails must be formal, whereas texting or Kakao Talk can be informal and shorter. So emails seem more difficult. Jenny says, using formal expressions in emails is quite difficult for me, especially when I send emails to companies or clients, etc. And Moonsun Cha says, writing emails every day at work, I wonder if what I wrote is rude or not. Yeah, we can make mistakes sometimes, but we're going to try to look at some common phrases and common ways to write better business emails in English. Jong Dawan says again, well, I live in Thailand, so I have to send, you live in Thailand, so you communicate in English. Okay, that makes more sense. In says, I don't know how to write or what I think. I don't know how to write what I think. That's the most difficult part of writing English for In. Okay, excellent, excellent. So a lot of you, I'm learning that a lot of you write emails and or texts in English. That's awesome. That's cool. That's more than I expected. And most of you have a problem with grammar or with just writing the right thing and not making a mistake and not being rude and trying to get your thoughts onto the screen. So let's quickly look at 5 rules that I think are important when writing business emails. Let's look at 5 quick rules that I think will help you if you keep them in mind. So here are a few rules. First, be clear. Short, simple, strong. Just because it's an email doesn't mean it needs to be long. Most business emails I send, most of the business emails I send are very short, like 3 sentences. That's it. That's all I need. Because people are busy. People don't need to read a huge paragraph of text. Short, simple, and strong. Communicate the most important thing so that they focus on the most important thing, not on details that are unimportant. So I really think that having a short, simple, strong email is very important. It just makes it clearer to the person receiving the email. For example, I wrote an example here. I actually have a spelling mistake here. I am inquiring about your new line of products. Please send, sorry, not end. Please send a catalog when available. Thank you. That would be the body of the email. I'm inquiring about your new line of products. Please send a catalog when available. Thank you. Just short, simple, right to the point. That's what we want to do. We don't need to write a lot of fluff. Fluff, I'm going to write that. Fluff is like, this is a common expression in writing. Fluff literally means like cotton or something that you put inside of like a teddy bear. Inside of a teddy bear, you might have the cotton, the fluff that makes it poofy. But fluff in writing is just extra words and extra sentences that maybe make the email sound a little bit better or look a little nicer, but they're not important. We want to avoid using too much fluff. Too much fluff makes it too big and too much to focus on. We want to narrow down to a specific focus while still being polite and formal. So let's look at the next rule. The next rule is basically the same idea. Write about one subject in each email. Now, when you send an email, you might want to ask many questions or talk about 2 or 3 different topics. But I encourage you to avoid that. Try to write about one subject in each email. Even if you have many subjects to discuss with the person, limit each email to one subject. This allows the other person to reply to each subject clearly. Now, I will tell you that personally, if you send me an email with 3 different topics, and I will usually focus on the first topic, maybe the second topic, and I might forget to address the third topic while I'm typing a reply. So if you send me an email with too many topics, while I'm thinking about the first 1 or 2 topics, I may forget about the third one, and so I won't answer it. And so you will be unhappy because I didn't answer all of your questions or talk about every topic you addressed. That's why each email should have one major important topic only. If you need to talk about something else, send it in a different email so that each email gets its own focus. Okay, let's look at the next tip. Use the 4 U's to write a strong subject. Now, writing a subject of an email is important because the subject is what the person will see first. We always see the subject before we open the email. And so the subject needs to be strong. The 4 U's are unique, urgent, useful, and ultra specific. So unique means special, not like everything else. Don't write a subject that says, this is important. Many emails say that. Lots of spam says that. Try to avoid subjects that sound like spam. We don't like that. Because if I see a spam email, I just delete it. Or something that looks like spam, I just delete it. So try to be unique. Also urgent. So urgent means shorter and showing importance. Useful, so the person knows what you're talking about immediately. They don't even need to open the email. They know what it is. And ultra specific. So my example here is updated list for fashion show. Now, of course, we don't need to use a full sentence. We don't even need to use correct grammar in a subject. Just like a newspaper article. The title of the newspaper article does not use 100% correct grammar. We smush it down and use only the most important words. Now, if you look at my title again, updated list for fashion show, if we wanted to make this correct, we would need to say the updated list for the fashion show. We need two thes. We need them to be grammatically correct. But because this is just the title, we don't need that. We don't need all this extra like articles like an and the. You really don't need it. We just want to make it short, simple, strong, urgent. So I just have updated list for fashion show. Now, before I even open the email, I know what's in the email. I know in the email there will be the updated list for the fashion show that's coming up soon, I'm sure. So, very specific, very useful. That is what your title should do, your subject. Let's look at the next one. Be polite. Now, politeness means different things, but in emails, there are certain phrases or words you don't want to use. You don't want to use curse words. You don't want to use too much slang. But let's go simpler than that. Simple rules for writing to other people. This can also apply to text messages. It can apply to discussion boards, anything. For example, don't use capital letters, all capital letters. Of course, the first word of a sentence should be capitalized. Certain nouns, the proper nouns like names of places should be capitalized. But don't use all capital letters. It sounds like you're screaming. For example, if I read this, it says, tips for writing business emails. Be polite. Don't use the capital letters. Don't use that. It sounds like you're screaming. Also, you don't need to use exclamation points. Unless it's really necessary, you don't need exclamation points. People really overuse them, so try to avoid them. Of course, don't use swear words, and use polite language even if you are angry. Even if you're angry, use polite language. Other people may read your email, and you want to appear polite. Now, if you are angry, and you are sending an angry email, I encourage you to use passive aggression. Aggression means anger. Aggression means like kind of violence. Passive means not active, not like directly at the person. You're not going directly at the person. You're going like around them with anger. So if I were angry that I ordered a product, it was supposed to come in 3 days. It's been 2 weeks and I still don't have it. I could write a very angry email saying, you did this. You promised me it would be here in 3 days. Blah, blah, blah. I could very pointedly point directly at them and say, you. We don't want to do that. We want to be passive aggressive. So you would say, I expected to receive my package within 3 days because I expected that your company was reliable. I guess I was wrong. It has been 2 weeks and I still haven't received it. I am a dissatisfied customer. You don't have to say you. I can even say me. I am a dissatisfied customer. I'm being passive aggressive. Without attacking the person directly, I'm showing that I'm unhappy. That's how you can show anger. But don't use swear words. Don't be too angry. Really think about what you're going to send, what you're going to write. Great. So here's an example. I urgently need the updated list for the fall fashion show. Urgently is saying I need it now. You should have already sent it to me. I should already have it. But you didn't send it to me. This is also kind of passive aggressive. I urgently need. Why haven't you sent it to me yet? I need it now. So it's showing kind of that you're upset, but you're not using angry language. Okay, the last tip is to use correct business email format. You need a salutation. For example, dear Mr. Smith, or to whomever it may concern. That's what we say when you don't know who you're writing to. If you're writing to a company, maybe, like I said, I had a problem with my shipping, and I need to contact their helpline, I don't know the name of the person who's helping me. So I can say, to whomever it may concern. That is a fixed phrase that we use to be very polite when we're writing to someone we don't know their name. You need an opening sentence, though you might not need an opening sentence if this is someone you commonly talk to. If it's your boss or a coworker, you don't really need an opening sentence. So this is optional. It depends on who you're talking to. You need an ending, so like thanking them for their time maybe, and a closing, which would be you signing off, saying maybe sincerely Joshua Hollis, or best regards Mr. Hollis. Something like that. We're going to look at a few different things we can say, closings, later, because everyone uses different closings in their email. If I'm writing formally, I use sincerely. Sincerely is a little bit old-fashioned, but it's what I grew up learning in school, so it just feels natural for me to use that. Many people use regards or best regards in formal emails, and in maybe if you're writing to friends or much more informal, I wouldn't use sincerely. I use cheers. Cheers is how I sign off when I'm writing to a friend. I'll just say, cheers, Josh. That's very informal though. I don't use that in formal emails. So it depends on the person. Different people use different things. And we're going to look at a few of them soon. So, speaking of looking at things, let's look at a few phrases. I'm looking at the chat now. Unjushin says, make them feel guilty. Yes, that's what passive aggressiveness does. Make them feel guilty. Don't be angry at them directly. Just make them feel it. I like that. Okay, so this is the most common one. Dear. This is how most emails start when you are talking, when you start the email. In the chat, Moonsun Cha is saying, to whomever it may concern is not old style. To whomever it may concern is old-fashioned. I don't want to say old-fashioned. It is old, but we still use it. Only when you're sending an email for the first time and you don't know who's going to answer. For example, if you send an email to the English department at Cuffs, you have a general question about maybe one of your classes, but you don't want to ask the professor, you just want to ask the English department. We have several people working in our English department office. You don't know who will answer the email. So you can't say, dear Miss Kim, dear Mr. Lee. You don't know who's going to answer it. So in that case, you would say, to whomever it may concern, because you don't know who's going to answer it. So yes, it is old, and yes, it sounds old-fashioned, but we still use it because, well, that's just what we use. It's always worked. And we don't have to use it a lot because you're not often sending emails to people that you don't know who's going to answer it. So it's not used commonly unless you're doing a lot of those cold emails. Cold emails or a cold call is where you're talking to someone that you don't know who it is, because you're not warm with them, you're not friendly. So it's a cold email or a cold call. Okay, so dear. Now, dear is an interesting word because dear is also very, very old-fashioned. Very old-fashioned. If you read like Jane Austen novels or other old-fashioned romance novels, you will hear dear. And it's kind of funny because dear basically means in Korean like 자기, like 자기야. Like it's like something you would call your girlfriend, boyfriend, or husband or wife. But we use it when we're addressing formally the beginning of an email, like dear Mr. Smith, dear Mrs. Lee. And also, if you look, we have a comma after the name. You can see on the screen, dear Mr. Smith, comma. Now, this is also optional. You can use a comma or you can use a colon. Colon is the two dots, dot, dot. You can use a comma or a colon. A colon is more formal. It's not used as often, but it shows more formality. If I were to use a colon, I would probably not use dear. I would just say, to Mr. Smith, colon. Let me write that like this. I would write, to Mr. Smith, colon. That's also one way you can do it. The colon makes it a little bit more formal. Okay, let's look at the next word, the next phrase. To whomever it may concern. We were just talking about this. Yes. So use this phrase when you do not know the name of the person that you are emailing, or if you are emailing a company for the first time. Yes, so just to whomever it may concern. We use whom, not who, because they're the object in the sentence, not the subject. That's the difference between who and whom. Who is a subject, whom is an object. So to whomever it may concern just means to whoever is reading this, and whoever can answer this, whoever sees this as important, whoever enters my email. So that's just the phrase we use. Next, this is a phrase we can use for the opening sentence. This might be the first sentence you write after to Mr. Smith or to Miss Lee. You could say, I am writing in regards to da 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 da. And this is just explaining the reason that you're writing an email. I'm writing in regard to the conversation that we had last week about a sales convention. Instead of saying I'm writing about or I want to talk about, this is more formal. This is just a better way to say it. I'm writing in regard to. Some people say regard, some people say regards. Regard might be better. I've written regards here, but you might want to write regard. So I'm writing in regard to the conversation that we had last week about a sales convention. You could use this for anything. If you're writing an email to your child's teacher, you could say, I'm writing in regard to the homework you sent this week. I'm writing in regard to the project my child has to complete. You can write this to your boss. I'm writing in regard to my pay raise. It's just, what is this email about? That's all this is saying. So can you give me an example right in the chat room? Give me an example of an opening sentence you might write using this phrase. I'll wait a few minutes. Right in the chat room, make an example sentence using this phrase. Okay, Moon Sun Cha says, I'm writing in regards to maybe the new project that you mentioned before. I'm writing in regards to the new project that you mentioned before. Awesome, good. Jenny says, I'm writing in regards to the meeting we will have tomorrow. Excellent. Very good. We'll wait another minute, see if any more come through. N says, I am writing in regards to my grade in this lecture. Good. Yes, you might need to use that at the end of the semester. If you're not happy with your grade, you might want to use that phrase and say, I'm writing in regard to my grade this lecture. You can be passive aggressive. I thought I would get a better grade. I guess you were a great teacher, but I was wrong. Something like that. Jungdaun 76 says, I am writing in regard to the vaccination form you've sent. Excellent. Benju Shin says, I'm writing in regard to a complaint from our client. Good. Good. Those are all excellent. Very good examples. Good. Okay. Let's move on to the next phrase. Sorry to bother you again so soon, but. Okay, you can use this phrase when you want to speak to someone that you very recently spoke to. Maybe if you sent this person an email the day before, or if you just sent them an email and you forgot something, or you just spoke to them in person but you're sending them an email right away. If you're speaking to them again too soon, you can say this to address what you want to say. So you can say, sorry to bother you again so soon, but I actually had another question. Sorry to bother you again so soon, but I forgot to ask about the meeting time. Something like that. So this is a good phrase to use if you are writing a quick email, usually a quick email that after another email or after you recently spoke to the person. So you don't need a lot, you don't need too much formality. You don't need an opening sentence or anything. You don't need, how are you doing today? The weather's great, right? We don't need opening sentences. We don't need fluff. This can be very direct because you recently spoke to the person. This is just a quick email. Just to ask a simple, quick question. Sorry to bother you again so soon, but I actually had another question. What time is the meeting tomorrow? Sincerely, Mr. Hollis. Just very quickly. So that's what this phrase is useful for. Let's move to the next one. Thank you for your quick reply. Use this phrase when the other person replied quickly to a previous email that you sent. Why? I don't know why I have a question mark there. Please ignore the question mark. Oh, why did I put a question mark there? Use this phrase when the other person replied quickly to a previous email that you sent. So if you send an email to the company replies quickly, and you want to say something else, you can say, thank you for your quick reply. I would like to speak to you about something else. So it's nice. This is a good opening sentence if someone replied to you quickly. Remember I said opening sentences are optional. You don't need them. They're not necessary. But this is a good place to use one if they replied quickly. Thank you for your quick reply. Now, you could say thank you for your fast reply. Thank you for replying quickly. But this is more fixed. I see this exact wording most often. Thank you for your quick reply. Just that exact sentence is used quite often. So I want you to understand, these are not sentences that I decided, I'll just write these quick sentences. This is what I would say. No, these are sentences that they're not necessarily fixed. You could change it. You could say, thank you for replying quickly. Thank you for answering my email so fast. Those are fine. You could do that. You can change it. But the most common way to say this is, thank you for your quick reply. I've seen it so many times in emails. I've written it so many times in emails. These are not strongly fixed phrases, but a little bit fixed because people often use them in this exact wording. Next, just a short note to remind you that you can use this phrase at the beginning of an email when you want to remind the person about something. So if you are sending an email to a customer, for example, or if you are a teacher sending an email to a student, usually this is not talking to a boss. You would not use this to talk to your boss because your boss will presumably know. They already know. You're using this to talk to someone, I don't want to say under you or lower than you, but not above you, not your boss or your manager or your supervisor. You might use this for a coworker or a student or a customer, something like that, just to remind somebody. And again, this is not a fixed phrase. You could say this differently. You could say, I just wanted to send you a quick email to remind you that. I mean, you can change this wording, but this is the most common way to write it. Just a short note to remind you that, So just a short note to remind you that our sale will end on the last day of the month. It's just a short note to remind you. Try to write an example sentence in the chat room. This is a good one to write an example sentence. Maybe what would you write to a customer, or what would you write to a student? or even a coworker, or maybe an employee, someone who works for you if you're a manager or a supervisor. What could you use this phrase to remind somebody about? Okay, let's see. Oh, nope, nothing in the chat yet. Oh, here we go. Tung Down 76 says, just a short note to remind you that we have a quiz next week. Excellent. Yes, I try to send these messages out to my students. If we have if the quiz is ending soon, I'll say, I just want to remind you that the quiz is ending soon, or you need to do your homework, something like that. Jenny says, just a short note to remind you that you need to send the meeting schedules to all departments by today, not until today, by today. Let's see. Just a short note to remind you that the due time of the project is on October 1st. Good. Just a short note to remind you that the due date, because October 1st is not a time, it's a date. So the due date of the project is October 1st. Good. Jenny said, until, you need to say by. I don't know if I have time to teach this today, but until and by are a little bit different, and they're often confusing for students. When do I say until? When do I say by? How do I explain this? This is not an easy one to explain either. I'm trying to think. By, we use by usually for, let's see. We use by for you need to do something before or on this date. Before the date is okay, or on the date. So we need to finish the project by October 1st. That means if you finish it on October 1st, that's okay. If you finish it on September 30th, that's okay. If you finish it on September 29th, that's okay. Before or on the date, that's when we use by. Until, you can use it with affirmative sentences, meaning like positive. However, we don't often do it. We use the verb finish often with until, but not always. Usually with until, we use negative phrasing. So, I can't go until Tuesday. That means before Tuesday, I can't go. But on Tuesday or after Tuesday, I can go. She cannot give a presentation until October 1st. That means that before October 1st, she can't give a presentation. On October 1st or after October 1st, she can. So you see the difference a little bit, that by is on the date or before, but until is on the date or after. And most often used with negative phrasing, not affirmative, not positive. There are more differences between by and until, but I don't have time to teach them right now. But yeah, they are slightly different. I just wanted to point that out very quickly, not because of, who was it, Jenny or... Yep, Jenny, you said it, not just to point out at you, but this is a common mistake I hear students make, so I'm sure that the others in the chat appreciate hearing about it too. Let's see. In says, just a short note to remind you that you didn't hand in homework yet. You didn't hand in homework yet. I already read Moonsoon Cha's, I think. Minju Shin says, just a short note to remind you that your homework's deadline was last week, but you still didn't, maybe you still haven't handed it in. You still haven't handed it in. I am really expecting a good job. I thought you were a good student. I'm quite disappointed. That's very passive aggressive. Good. Make the student feel your pain. Good. Excellent. Good passive aggressiveness. Okay, let's move on to the next phrase. Here's another just short note. So before we had just a short note to remind you that. This is just a short note to follow up on. So we can use this to begin the email when you want to check on something that you already discussed with the person. So you're not reminding them, you're kind of asking a question. You're kind of following up on a topic you already talked about. You're kind of continuing the conversation about something. So here's my example. Dear Mr. Kim, just a short note to follow up on the question you asked me last week. I would love to da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So this is just following up, means we already talked about this topic, but maybe I want to say something more. Maybe I have a question about the topic. Maybe you asked me a question a few days ago and I haven't answered yet. And now I'm finally answering, so I want to send a short note to follow up on the question. You're kind of continuing the conversation about this topic. So that's just a short note to follow up on. Next one. I apologize for writing out of the blue. Okay, so out of the blue is an idiom in English. Now remember, idioms don't mean what they say. They don't, you can't look at it literally. It doesn't make sense. So out of the blue has nothing to do with blue color. Out of the blue just means without any warning, or all of a sudden, suddenly is out of the blue. Suddenly, without warning, you weren't expecting it. This is out of the blue. So, for example, if I am walking in the supermarket, I'm at E-Mart, and I see my old boss. I haven't seen my boss in 5 years, but I see my old boss just out of the blue. We just meet. That just means unexpectedly, suddenly. I did not expect that to happen. That's out of the blue. So we can say, I apologize for writing out of the blue. We can use this phrase when you're emailing someone that you have not spoken to in a long time. Out of the blue means suddenly or unexpected. So I apologize for writing out of the blue, but I have a favor to ask. So this would be something you would write to someone you haven't spoken to in quite a long time. So maybe they're not expecting your email. This is just, you're writing out of the blue. So that's what you can say if you're talking to someone you haven't spoken to in a long time. This is a good opening sentence. And this, out of the blue, is a fixed phrase. You can't change it. You could say, I apologize for writing so suddenly. I'm sorry for writing unexpectedly, but that's not as common. Even though idioms tend to be less formal, out of the blue would be more informal. This is just, you can still write this in a formal email because it's a phrase that we use more often than unexpectedly or suddenly, or I know you weren't expecting it. So you can use this. Please find attached. This is the phrase that I use probably more than any other phrase here that I'm teaching you now, because I so often send attachments, Word documents or PowerPoints, or I'm a teacher. I work with lots of these documents for classes and things. So I'm often talking to the English department, or I'm talking to my tutors, or even to students, and I have to send attachments and documents. So this is what I will usually write at the end of the email. I'll say, please find attached my essay. Please find attached my PowerPoint. Please find attached maybe the Word document. So we use this phrase when you want to explain that you have attached a file to the email. This phrase can be used at the beginning, middle, or end of the email. I tend to use it at the end. You don't need to say, I have attached. You can say that. I have attached my my essay. This is just more formal. Please find attached. Now, the wording here might look a little bit strange. Remember, please is just the nice way to say something. So we don't really need to pay attention to that for grammar. Just ignore that if you're worried about the grammar. Find is the verb. This is a type of sentence that we use when we tell somebody to do something. So we are like, sit down, go away, listen carefully. There's no subject to the sentence, right? So you don't need to worry about a subject. And the word attached is simply the adjective. So please find attached my essay. My essay is attached. Please find it. So it looks very strange. The grammar looks weird, but trust me, this is a formal way you can say that I have attached a document to my email. And I use this so often. Just please find attached my email or my essay. Please find attached my presentation. Please find attached the schedule. Something like that. This is a common way to close an email. Maybe the last thing you say is, I look forward to your reply. Use this phrase when you want the other person to email you back. This is very formal. I don't use this with people I often email. Like if it's my boss or if it's a coworker that I often email, I won't use this because I'm being formal, but I don't have to be super polite. But if you're emailing a company for the first time, like to whomever it may concern, I have a problem with my order. I look forward to your reply. That's when I would use it, when I'm being so formal and it's not somebody I often talk to. I look forward to your reply. This is also kind of a simple way to say, please answer me quickly. Please send me a quick email about this. Please don't ignore this email. Reply to my email. It's kind of asking in a very nice way to please reply. Because of course, look forward to means I'm expecting or I'm hoping to get your reply. So this is a common way to close a formal email with somebody you don't often talk to. Hope to hear from you soon. This is the same thing, but less formal. This is more informal. This is what I might use if I'm talking to maybe a coworker I used to work with, someone I used to work with in the past, or a student I had a long time ago. This is not super formal, so I would not use it in a very formal business context. But again, it's not terribly informal. Hope to hear from you soon. It's just a less formal way to say, I look forward to your reply. And you can say I wrote best, Josh. Best is another way that you can close your email. You can say sincerely, which is very formal. I tend to use cheers if I want to be informal. You can also say best. Best is a very short way to say, I hope you're having the best day, or I hope you're in best health. It's hoping that the other person is best or feeling the best. Very, 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 very good. Just a very short way to say that. So you can also use this to be a little bit informal. Best. This is a very formal way to say that if you have questions, talk to me. Do not hesitate to contact me if you require any assistance. So if you're writing to a company, or if you're writing to a student, or even a coworker or an employee, and you want to be very formal and say, if you have any questions, please contact me, you can use this phrase. I have used this phrase before. It's terribly formal, very, very formal. I usually, personally, I just say, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll write that in the chat. So this is a little bit less formal way to say it. If you have any questions, please let me know. That is what I often use instead of this. This is okay. This is great. This is very formal though. Do not hesitate to contact me if you require any assistance. Okay, next one. Another one. This is very similar to the one we just said. Let me know if you need anything. This is a little bit more informal. So instead of saying, do not hesitate to contact me if you need any assistance, you can say, let me know if you need anything. Just the same as if you have any questions, please let me know. Just a more informal way to say this. And I said that we would talk about closing. This is how you close an email. I tend to say sincerely when I'm being formal. It is old-fashioned. Most people don't like that anymore. I know I've talked to some of my coworkers and they say that it's too old-fashioned to use. I grew up in the countryside, very countryside, in the south of the U.S. The south means like Alabama, Mississippi, that kind of area. They're very, very formal, very, very polite there. They say sir and ma'am. So yes, sir, no ma'am. I said that when I was younger. Very, very formal, very, very polite. So saying sincerely to me feels more comfortable. But most people don't prefer to use that anymore. And they will use things like warm regards or best regards. Those are maybe more common nowadays to use in formal emails. So maybe best regards would be a good one to use. Best regards, Joshua Hollis, would be a common one to use. Sincerely is okay, but yeah. Tung Dawen is saying you don't have a southern accent. I used to. After high school, I went to college in the north of the United States, in Minnesota. And everyone made fun of my accent so much that for 2 years, I worked very hard to get rid of it. And so now I don't have a southern accent. My parents do, so they definitely have southern accents, but I worked very hard to get rid of it and have a very, very neutral accent, which helps as an English teacher. I can still turn on the southern accent, but I don't like to. Okay, let's see. Do I have anything else here? I can't remember. Oh, here's some more informal ways to close an email. For example, this is just more informal. Like I said, I use cheers. You can also say take care, best. I already showed an example of that. See you soon if you're going to see the person soon. If it's to family, if you're writing to family or girlfriend, boyfriend, something like that, you can say love Josh. Be careful, don't use that on accident in a formal email. Yeah, so these are some informal ways you can close the email. I think we're just about out of time, and I don't think I have any more. Yeah, I have this activity I wanted to do, but we simply do not have time because I have to make time for the next professor to come on. But it was good to talk to you again today. I hope that you learned a little bit about writing formal emails. I hope that even if you don't remember all of the phrases we talked about, if you just remember one or two of them and you can use them in your own life, that's great. I'm glad I helped. Have a good Chuseok. If you're traveling, if you have to travel far for Chuseok, careful driving, have safe driving. And I don't have to travel far. I live with my mother-in-law. I don't have to travel anywhere. I just stay at home. I have to travel to the living room. That's it. So have a good Chuseok. Bye, guys.